This week we continue our series chronicling the turbulent 1920s. Who knows, maybe it'll help put some of our current woes in perspective. Life in that decade was a hazardous and random affair. Technology was improving every day, but each new discovery unlocked hidden dangers and people paid with their lives. Politics was also a more deadly profession during this decade. Assassinations were all too common. For those who lived through this time, it must have seemed as if death was lurking behind every corner. Today, we will look at some of the worst and least remembered events of 1922. Knickerbocker Storm. The Knickerbocker Theater was built in 1917 in Washington, D.C. In 1922, it was owned by Harry M. Crandall. He also owned several other large theaters throughout the United States. On January 28th, several people were inside the theater. They began watching a movie of which most would never see the end. For several days, the area had been in the grip of a severe winter storm, and Washington, D.C. received 28 inches of snow that day. Unfortunately, the roof of the Knickerbocker Theater was flat. The snow collected on top of the roof, and a little after 9 p.m., it collapsed. As the roof fell on top of the crowd, the balconies also collapsed. A wall then fell on top of the injured spectators. 98 people were killed and 133 were injured. Harry M. Crandall and the theater's architect were emotionally destroyed by the disaster. They eventually killed themselves. Rand Rebellion. In 1921, coal miners in the United States rebelled against the government and their employers. By 1922, labor unrest was an issue in other parts of the world too. Gold miners in South Africa saw their quality of life start to decline a couple of years earlier. Gold prices dropped suddenly and sharply. The owners of the mines tried several strategies to make up the shortfall in earnings. First, they cut wages. But that wasn't enough, and labor costs had to be reduced further, so black miners were promoted instead of white miners. Since South Africa was an extremely racist country, black people were paid much less than their white counterparts, so using black labor was more cost-effective. The white miners were angry about their working conditions, and they were furious about black miners being employed. A strike began in late December 1921. But by 1922 it had evolved into a full-scale rebellion. The Communist Party of South Africa did not like the racist policies advocated by the miners, but they decided to join the cause and participated in rebellion against the government. Initially, the white workers and their communist allies were successful. They occupied 2 cities and made it as far as the suburbs of Johannesburg. Their progress was suddenly stopped. Prime Minister Jan Smuts sent 20,000 troops to confront the rebels. He also used artillery to bombard the men and planes to drop more bombs upon them. By the time March ended, the rebellion was over and the South African government was in control. The white workers had their revenge against Jan Smuts in the next election. The representatives they helped take office eventually passed legislation that ensured black workers couldn't be promoted into jobs that white people wanted. Picardie mid-air collision. Airplanes were still a relatively new technology in the 1920s. During World War I, they were manufactured in large numbers all over Europe. And once the war ended, people were trying to find other uses for airplanes. Britain and France decided to establish a civilian air industry. One way they did this was by converting military airplanes to civilian aircraft that could then carry passengers. Additionally, planes were used to carry mail. April 7th was rainy and fog had moved in, but the weather didn't stop aircraft from delivering their cargo. That day, a pilot was flying from England to Paris to deliver mail. At the same time, another airplane had departed from Le Bourget, France. It was carrying 3 passengers. Both aircraft were flying at an altitude of 492 feet. Near Picardie, France, they saw each other but didn't have time to take evasive action. The planes collided, and shortly thereafter, both aircraft struck the ground. Observers ran to the location of both crashes. All pilots and passengers were dead except for one young boy. He died later from his injuries. It was the first time two aircraft ever collided in mid-air. It would not be the last. Sir Henry Wilson assassination. Henry Wilson was born in Ireland on May 5, 1864. He would eventually become a highly decorated officer in the British military. He served through World War I and stayed with the military until December 1921. In 1922, he was elected to Parliament. Because of his extensive military service, and since he was from Ireland, Henry was also asked to advise the Northern Ireland government. They needed help with security because a civil war was coming. Although England and Ireland had been in conflict, a treaty was finally proposed and accepted. The new provisional government of Ireland, known as the Irish Free State, accepted the treaty and tried to govern their country. However, the Irish Republican Army did not want to stop fighting and considered the treaty supporters to be traitors. Two members of the IRA decided one way to champion the cause was to kill Henry Wilson. On June 22nd, Henry was returning home from the dedication of a new war memorial. He was in full uniform as he walked down the sidewalk toward his home. Reginald Dunn and Joseph O'Sullivan were waiting for him. They were members of the IRA, and when they saw Henry, the men opened fire. Sir Henry Wilson was hit 6 times. 2 of the wounds to his chest were fatal. The men didn't want to be captured, so they kept shooting. In the process, they hit 2 police officers and a chauffeur. Eventually, a crowd surrounded the assailants and helped police capture them. The 2 men were hanged on August 10th. The same day the IRA members were executed, Henry's favorite home in Ireland was burned to the ground. Michael Collins dies. When Ireland was in conflict with England, Michael Collins was the leader of the IRA, but he supported the treaty and ultimately provided his assistance to the Irish Free State. His position was a dangerous one. The IRA soldiers that Michael Collins had led just a year earlier now considered him to be their enemy. On August 20th, Michael wanted to travel to the city of Cork, where he was born. His trusted associates warned him not to do it. They were very concerned for his safety. Michael told his advisors, "They won't shoot me in my own country." So he took a car and a few men and began his journey. Along the way, Michael stopped at a pub. One of the men saw Michael Collins and recognized him. Michael continued to Cork. Meanwhile, the man who recognized Michael told other locals who were against the Irish Free State. They decided to create an ambush in case Michael passed their way again. By 7 p.m., most of the would-be ambushers had already gone home. Only 6 men remained, and they were beginning to dismantle the obstacles in the road. As they were working, Michael Collins' vehicle suddenly appeared. The ambushers opened fire. Michael's companions wanted to escape, but Michael told them to stop and fight. They exchanged fire for some time. Michael ran from behind the vehicle he was using as cover. He fired 2 shots with his rifle. As he tried to chamber another round, a former British sniper shot him in the head. Michael Collins was the only fatality that resulted from the ambush. Edith Thompson and Frederick Bywaters. England was a violent place in 1922. In addition to political violence, there were also deadly love triangles. Edith Thompson was an academically talented young woman. As a child, she enjoyed dancing and acting, but she grew up fast. At the age of 15, she met Percy Thompson. After a 6-year engagement, they were finally married. In 1920, Edith was in her mid-20s. She and Percy became friendly with an 18-year-old gentleman named Frederick Bywaters. Frederick was in the merchant navy and traveled all over the world. Edith was smitten. She loved to hear tales of his adventures and found him to be attractive and exciting. Frederick was far more interesting than Percy, who was boring and predictable. Percy had no idea how Edith felt. He considered Frederick to be a family friend and invited him to stay at their home on several occasions. In 1921, Edith, Percy, and Frederick were on vacation. Edith and Frederick began having an affair. Frederick finally realized what was going on and began arguing with Edith. He hit Edith, and Frederick tried to stop him. Percy ordered Frederick to leave. Frederick returned to sea and remained there until 1922. Edith and Percy's marriage endured in the meantime. On October 3rd, 1922, Edith and Percy were returning home from a night at the theater. As they walked down the road, a man jumped out of some bushes and knocked Edith down. He then attacked Percy and stabbed him to death. The police lied to Edith and told her that Frederick had confessed. She said that she knew it was him and admitted to their relationship. Police then found Edith's love letters to Frederick. Frederick Bywaters insisted that Edith had nothing to do with the attack and he acted alone, but the trial against both proceeded as planned. On December 11th, the jury declared they were both guilty. They were both sentenced to death. Upon hearing the verdict, Edith began screaming at the court. Frederick yelled, "I say the verdict of the jury is wrong. Edith Thompson is not guilty." Both were hanged at the same time in 1923. Edith was unable to walk to her execution and collapsed in fear. She was sedated and carried to the gallows, where she joined her lover in death. Hinterkaifeck Murders. Germany was also a place where murderous people ran free. In 1922, 6 people were living on a farmstead. It was located 70 miles south of Munich. Strange things had been happening for months. The family maid suddenly quit claiming that the farm was haunted. A newspaper was left on the front porch, but nobody there had a subscription. And one day, fresh tracks from an unknown person were found in the snow. Andreas Gruber was the head of the household. He lived with his wife, their widowed daughter, and her 2 sons. On March 31st, their new maid arrived at the farm. She was a welcome addition to the household, but her timing was unfortunate. That evening, there was probably a disturbance in the stable. One by one, members of the family left the house to go check on what was happening. This included Andreas, his wife, his daughter, and his granddaughter. Somebody was waiting in the stable. Using a tool that is similar to a pickaxe, he struck each person in the head. They were all killed. Then the bodies were stacked in the barn. Next, he moved into the house and murdered the maid, then the remaining child. People began to wonder why they hadn't seen the Grubers lately. After 4 days, a small group started looking for them. The bodies in the barn and the house were finally discovered. Whoever killed the family didn't leave immediately. He stayed for several days eating the food. The assailant even fed the animals. Police investigated for years and made several arrests. All the suspects were eventually released. In the end, they never did find who committed the murders. The case was finally closed in 1955. If there is a lesson to be learned from 1922, it is probably that you don't need social media to destroy lives. Determination and ignorance can accomplish horrible things at any time in history. Which of these events did you find most surprising? Did you know about any of them before seeing this episode? Tell us more in the comments below if you aren't afraid to share. Please subscribe if you learned something interesting, and hit the like button too, please. We might tell stories from the past, but we need your help now. If you're looking to become a more involved member of the History Club, then we also have a Patreon page. We usually have merchandise available on the website too. Look in the video description below for all the links you need. Thank you for watching Bad Things in History.